Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. This is The Other Opinion, the place where we really try to dig into those perspectives that maybe don't get talked about enough, the challenging ones that shape our world.
Exactly.
And today, wow, we are taking on a massive topic. The incredibly rich, often complex, sometimes misunderstood history of Islam.
Yeah, it's a huge subject. Our goal here is really to, sift through the sources you send over, primarily the history of Islam, origins, expansion, and modern perspectives, and also the entire history of Islam, which covers a lot, mythos, rhetoric, divisions, all that.
Right.
And we want to pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising facts, to give you, our listener, a solid, concise understanding, help connect those dots.
Connect the dots, I like that. Okay, so to really get this, we need to go back, way back. Early 7th century, Arabian Peninsula. Think deserts, trade routes.
A very specific context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where Muhammad is born, around 570 CE in Mecca. He's part of the Quraysh tribe, and even before everything else, he had this reputation, Al-Amin, the trustworthy.
Which is pretty significant later on.
Definitely. Then comes the pivotal moment. He's about 40, it's 610 CE. He's meditating in the cave of Hira.
And that's when the first revelation happens. The angel Gabriel appears, the command, recite, Iqra. It's powerful.
And what was he told to recite? What was the core message in those early days?
Well, the absolute core was Tawhid, strict monotheism, one God, Allah. This was a massive departure from the polytheism all around him, especially in Mecca, centered on the Kaaba.
Which had, what, hundreds of idols?
360 idols, yeah. So his message wasn't just theological, it was also deeply social. Calls for justice, looking after the poor, charity, thinking about the Day of Judgment. All this gets compiled into the Quran.
So a radical message, both spiritually and socially. How was it received?
Initially, she preached privately, to close family and friends. But once it went public, fierce opposition, especially from the Meccan elites.
Because it threatened their power structure.
Absolutely. Their wealth, their social standing, it was all tied up with the Kaaba pilgrimages and the existing polytheistic traditions. Muhammad's message was seen as a direct threat.
Really critical event, a turning point, the Hijra in 622 CE.
Right, the migration. Muhammad and his followers leave Mecca for Yathrib, which is then renamed Medina, the city.
And this isn't just moving house. This is year 1 in the Islamic calendar. It's that significant.
Hugely significant. And think about this. He didn't just flee to Medina. He was invited by the tribes there to mediate their long-standing disputes.
Yeah.
Even while facing persecution in Mecca, his reputation as trustworthy, as Al-Amin, preceded him.
That says a lot. So what happens in Medina?
Medina is where the first real Islamic community, the Ummah, takes shape. And Muhammad establishes something quite groundbreaking, the Constitution of Medina.
What did that do?
It basically created a framework for peaceful coexistence. It brought together the Muslims, the local Jewish tribes, even the pagan Arabs, under an agreement of mutual defense and, crucially, religious freedom for all. It's a remarkable early example of pluralism.
Wow. But it wasn't all smooth sailing, right? There were conflicts.
Oh, definitely. This period saw key battles. Baji in 624 CE, a major victory for the Muslims against the Meccans, kind of solidified their position. Then Uhud in 625 CE, which was more complex, a setback in some ways.
And this all builds towards
the eventual return to Mecca. In 630 CE, Muhammad leads his followers back and conquers Mecca, remarkably, almost bloodlessly. He goes to the Kaaba, destroys the idols, and rededicates it to the one God, Allah.
a powerful symbol.
Immensely powerful. And by the time of his death, just 2 years later, in 632 CE, most of the Arabian Peninsula had actually come under the banner of Islam.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly rapid transformation.
Astonishingly rapid. Okay, so Muhammad dies in 632. What happens next? Does the momentum just stop?
Not at all. In fact, it accelerates. This is the beginning of the Rashidun Caliphate, the rightly guided caliphs, lasting from 632 to 661 CE. First up is Abu Bakr.
Muhammad's close companion.
Exactly. And his immediate challenge was dealing with the Ridda Wars, or apostasy wars, where some tribes tried to break away after Muhammad's death. Abu Bakr managed to consolidate the community.
And then came Umar.
Yes, Umar, the second caliph. And under Umar, the expansion just explodes. They defeat huge parts of the Byzantine Empire, the Levant, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, taking cities like Damascus, Jerusalem, Alexandria.
And the other superpower at the time, Persia.
The Sasanian Persian Empire, yes.
Yeah.
Umar's forces essentially conquered it too. It's a breathtakingly swift expansion across vast territories.
How did they even manage that? Not just militarily, but like governing it all.
That's where Umar's genius really shows. He wasn't just a general, he was an administrator. He set up the Diwan, which was initially a register for soldiers' pensions, but became a central part of the state bureaucracy. He established the Beit al-Mal, the public treasury, to manage state finances. And importantly, he implemented the jizya.
The tax on non-Muslims, how did that work?
It was a tax paid by non-Muslim monotheists, Christians, and Jews primarily, in exchange for protection by the Muslim state and exemption from military service. Crucially, it allowed them to practice their own faith. It was a system for integrating conquered peoples without forcing conversion.
So a pragmatic approach to building a diverse empire?
Very pragmatic, yes. Though, like you said, not always smooth. This Rashidun period eventually ends in civil war, the first fitna, a really traumatic period of internal conflict over leadership.
Which leads us to the next dynasty.
The Umayyad Caliphate. From 661 to 750 CE, they shifted the capital from Medina to Damascus, founded by Muawiyah.
And the expansion continued under them.
Oh, yes. The Umayyads pushed west across North Africa, then famously into Spain in 711 CE under Tariq ibn Ziyad that becomes Al-Andalus. They also expanded east, reaching the Indus Valley.
So a massive empire stretching from Spain to India, basically.
Huge. And they left their mark architecturally, too. Think of the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, built by Caliph Abd al-Malik around 691 CE. He also Arabized the administration, made Arabic the official language, and minted distinctly Islamic coins, creating a stronger identity.
But there were tensions building under the Umayyads too, weren't there?
There were. A key issue was the treatment of the Mawali, the non-Arab converts to Islam. They often felt they weren't treated as equals by the Arab ruling class.
Second-class citizens, essentially.
That was the feeling for many, yeah. And this resentment, combined with other factors, fueled the Abbasid Revolution.
Which overthrew the Umayyads in 750 CE.
Exactly. And the Abbasids marked another huge shift. They moved the capital again, this time eastward, to a newly built city, Baghdad.
And Baghdad becomes synonymous with?
The Islamic Golden Age.
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. Especially under rulers like Harun al-Rashid, who reigned in the late 8th, early 9th centuries.
The guy from the Arabian Nights?
That's the one. Though the reality was probably less about magic carpets and more about incredible intellectual flourishing. He famously supported the House of Wisdom, Beit al-Hikmah, in Baghdad.
What was the House of Wisdom? Just a library?
Oh, much more than that. It was a major intellectual center, a library, a translation institute, an academy. They sponsored scholars to translate vast amounts of knowledge, Greek philosophy, Persian literature, Indian mathematics, into Arabic.
So preserving and building upon earlier knowledge.
Preserving, translating, synthesizing, and then building significantly upon it. This translation movement laid the foundation for incredible advances.
Like what? Give us some highlights from this golden age.
Okay, well, you have Al-Khwarizmi, whose work on Indian numerals gave us the word algorithm, and his book Kitab al-Jabwa al-Muqabala gave us algebra.
Wow.
You have Ibn al-Haytham, basically the father of modern optics, figuring out how vision actually works. In medicine, figures like Al-Razi and Ibn Sina Avicenna in the West wrote medical encyclopedias that were used as standard texts in Europe for centuries.
And philosophy.
Huge developments there, too. Thinkers like Al-Farabi and Ibn Rushd Averroes engaged deeply with Aristotle and Plato, trying to harmonize Greek philosophy with Islamic theology. It was an incredibly vibrant intellectual period.
It sounds amazing. But empires tend to fragment, don't they? Did the Abbasid Caliphate stay unified?
No, didn't maintain central control forever. Over time, powerful regional dynasties emerged. You had the Fatimids, who were Shia, establishing their own caliphate in Egypt and North Africa.
Right.
Later, the Ayyubids, founded by the famous Saladin, who recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders in 1187.
The Saladin.
And then the Mamluks, originally slave soldiers who took power in Egypt and Syria and famously defeated the Mongols at the Battle of Anjalut in 1260. That was a huge deal, stopping the Mongol advance westward.
We should also mention Al-Andalus again, right? Muslim Spain.
Absolutely. We can't forget Cordoba under its own Umayyad Caliphate, descended from a prince who escaped the Abbasid Revolution. Under rulers like Abd al-Rahman III in the 10th century, Cordoba became perhaps the most advanced city in Europe. Huge libraries, scientific progress, and that remarkable coexistence or convivencia between Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
So, multiple centers of power and culture. But what happened to the Abbasids in Baghdad?
Their end was dramatic and violent. In 1258, the Mongols, led by Hulagu Khan, sacked Baghdad. They destroyed the city, including the House of Wisdom, killed the last Abbasid Caliph. It was a devastating blow, often seen as the symbolic end of the Golden Age.
A catastrophic event. But Islam itself obviously didn't end there.
And not at all. It continued to spread and evolve, which brings us into the era of the great gunpowder empires, starting around the 13th, 16th centuries.
Okay, who are we talking about here?
Three major players. First, the Ottoman Empire, starting small in Anatolia around 1299, but growing massive. Think Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century, ruling from Hungary to Yemen across North Africa. A huge power for centuries.
Right, the Ottomans. Who else?
Then you have the Safavids in Persia, modern-day Iran. They came to power around 1501 and did something really significant. They established Twelver Shia Islam as the state religion, which profoundly shapes Iran even today.
Okay, Ottomans, mostly Sunni, Safavids, Shia, and the third.
The Mughals in India. Founded by Babur in 1526, descended from Timur and Genghis Khan. They created a vast empire known for its wealth and, at times, tolerance, like under Emperor Akbar. And, of course, for incredible architecture like the Taj Mahal, built by Shah Jahan.
So these large, powerful Islamic empires dominated vast swaths of the world into the early modern period.
Exactly. And meanwhile, Islam wasn't just spreading through conquest. Trade was huge.
How so?
Merchants, scholars, Sufi mystics, they carry Islam along trade roads deep into Africa, leading to powerful West African empires like Mali under Mansa Musa, famous for his incredible wealth and pilgrimage to Mecca. And also across the Indian Ocean to Southeast Asia, places like Indonesia and Malaysia became predominantly Muslim through trade and conversion, with powerful sultanates like Malaga emerging, even into parts of China.
So it becomes a truly global faith, far beyond the Middle East. Let's shift gears slightly. What about the mythos, the core stories and beliefs beyond the historical timeline?
Good point. You have the foundational creation story, Allah creating the heavens and earth in 6 days or periods, the story of Adam and Eve, shared with Judaism and Christianity, but with Islamic interpretations.
And angels and jinn?
Yes, belief in angels, like Gabriel the messenger, is central. And jinn, unseen beings made of smokeless fire, capable of belief or disbelief, interacting with humans. It adds a whole other dimension to the cosmos.
And looking towards the end, eschatology.
Very important. Belief in the Day of Judgment, resurrection, heaven, and hell. There are also traditions about end times figures, like the Mahdi, a rightly guided leader who will appear, and the Dajjal, an anti-Christ-like figure.
And within Muhammad's life story itself, are there key mythic or legendary elements?
The most significant is probably the Isra and Miraj, the night journey and ascension. The story of Muhammad being miraculously transported from Mecca to Jerusalem in one night and then ascending through the 7 heavens, meeting earlier prophets, and ultimately coming into the presence of God. It's deeply symbolic and spiritually significant for Muslims.
Okay, so we have the history, the spread, the mythos. What about the ethos? The core practices and ethics that define being Muslim.
That really comes down to the 5 pillars. They're the framework of Muslim life, the practical expression of faith.
Let's quickly list them.
Sure. 1, the Shahada, the declaration of faith, there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. 2, Salah, the 5 daily ritual prayers performed facing Mecca.
3,
Zakat, obligatory charity, usually 2.5% of one's accumulated wealth given to the needy. 4, Psalm fasting during the month of Ramadan from dawn till sunset.
And 5,
Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, which every Muslim who is able must undertake at least once in their lifetime.
So these pillars provide structure. What about guiding daily life beyond that? Sharia.
Right, Sharia, which literally means the path. It's often misunderstood in the West as just harsh laws, but it's much broader. It's derived from the Quran and the Sunnah, the Prophet's example, and aims to guide all aspects of life, personal morality, family law, business ethics, how you treat others.
Including things like prohibitions.
Yes, things like the prohibition of usury, interest on loans, gambling, consuming pork or alcohol. But also positive injunctions, emphasis on justice, honesty, compassion, even towards animals, and environmental stewardship, which is quite relevant today.
Okay, that's the ethos. What about the pathos? The emotional, spiritual, experiential side of Islam.
Huge aspect. You feel it in the humility of prostration during prayer, salah. You see it in dhikr, the remembrance of God, which can involve chanting divine names or phrases, often in rhythmic, meditative ways.
Like a spiritual practice.
Exactly. And the Hajj pilgrimage is an incredibly powerful, emotional, and communal experience, uniting Muslims from all over the world. Then there's Sufism.
The mystical tradition within Islam.
Yes, focusing on direct, experiential knowledge of God, often through love, purification of the self, and practices like meditation and sometimes ecstatic rituals. Think of poets like Rumi, whose work resonates globally with its focus on divine love. Communal festivals like Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha are also full of shared joy and devotion.
So a rich inner life. And finally, logos, the rational element. We touched on the Golden Age, but how does reason fit into faith more broadly?
Well, the Quran itself frequently urges believers to reflect, to use their reason, to look at the signs in nature and history. As we saw, the Golden Age wasn't seen as contradicting faith. Rather, studying the natural world, mathematics, logic, it was often seen as a way to appreciate God's creation and order. There's a strong tradition of integrating faith and reason, though obviously there have been debates and different emphases throughout history.
Okay, that's a vast sweep. Let's bring it closer to the present. How did we get from those empires to the world map we see today? Colonialism seems key.
Absolutely crucial. Starting mainly in the 19th century, European colonial powers gradually dismantled or took control of most of the Muslim world. The Ottoman Empire shrank and was finally dissolved after WWI. The Mughals were formally ended by the British. North Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia all came under colonial rule.
And the drawing of new borders.
Led directly to the formation of modern nation-states, often with lines drawn for colonial convenience rather than ethnic or historical realities. This process saw the emergence of countries like Turkey under Ataturk, deliberately creating a secular republic out of the Ottoman heartland.
And others?
Saudi Arabia, consolidating power on the peninsula with a foundation in the Wahhabi interpretation of Islam. Pakistan, created in 1947 specifically as a homeland for South Asia's Muslims. So a complete redrawing of the political map.
Then after World War II.
You see the era of decolonization, but also new dynamics. The discovery of vast oil reserves fundamentally changes the power and wealth of Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE.
Giving them huge global influence.
Immense influence. And you also see major conflicts and political shifts continuing to shape the region. The Arab-Israeli conflict, of course. And then huge events like the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran, which overthrew the U.S.-backed Shah and established a Shia Islamic Republic, radically altering the geopolitical landscape.
Okay, which brings us right up to contemporary perspectives. And let's be honest, views on Islam today are diverse, sometimes polarized.
Extremely. You have many people, both Muslims and non-Muslims, who emphasize Islam's core teachings of peace, compassion, and justice. But you also have, especially in the West perhaps, perceptions strongly colored by the actions of extremist groups, leading to associations with violence and intolerance.
And within Muslim communities themselves, there's diversity of thought there too, right?
Absolutely. Pew Research surveys, for instance, often show that majorities in many Muslim-majority countries say they want Sharia to be the official law of their land. But what Sharia means to different people can vary enormously, from personal piety to state-enforced codes. Western interpretations of that desire often miss this nuance.
This seems like a good time to talk about the actual classes and divisions within Islam. It's not monolithic.
Not at all. The biggest division, the one most people know, is Sunni versus Shia. It goes right back to the beginning. A dispute over who should succeed Muhammad as leader.
Right. Abu Bakr versus Ali.
Essentially, yes. Sunnis, who are the vast majority today, maybe 87–90%, generally followed the consensus choice, starting with Abu Bakr. Shia, around 10–13%, concentrated in Iran, Iraq, Bahrain. Parts of Lebanon believed leadership should have stayed within Muhammad's family, starting with his cousin and son-in-law, Ali.
And that initial split has led to different theological developments, different legal schools, different traditions over centuries.
Definitely. And within both Sunni and Shia Islam, there's further diversity, different schools of law, theological viewpoints, plus other groups entirely, like the Abadi Muslims, mainly in Oman, who trace their roots back to another early split. And then you have Sufism, which often cuts across the Sunni-Shia divide as a mystical path.
So it's complex, and these divisions sometimes lead to internal conflicts, sadly.
They do. Sectarianism between Sunnis and Shia is a major issue in several countries, often inflamed by regional politics. Think of the rivalry between Saudi Arabia, Sunni, and Iran, Shia, playing out in proxy conflicts in places like Yemen or Syria.
And then there's extremism.
Yes, violent extremist groups like ISIS or Al-Qaeda pose a threat not only externally but internally. They often target fellow Muslims whom they deem apostates or impure. Their interpretation is rejected by the vast majority of Muslims, but it causes immense suffering.
Are there other internal tensions?
Sure. You have theological disputes, like ongoing debates between very conservative Salafi or Wahhabi interpretations versus more traditional or Sufi-influenced approaches. And sometimes, unfortunately, ethnic or tribal loyalties can override religious unity and lead to conflict.
And we need to stress here again on the other opinion, we're reporting what the sources describe. We're not taking sides or endorsing any viewpoint, just trying to lay out the complexities.
Absolutely crucial. Impartiality is key.
Okay, what about external conflicts and broader societal challenges?
Well, externally, Islamophobia is a serious reality in many parts of the world. Prejudice, discrimination, sometimes violence directed at Muslims or those perceived as Muslim. Geopolitical tensions are constantly simmering. Obviously, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a major one, but also things like the persecution of Uyghur Muslims in China.
And the legacy of colonialism you mentioned?
It still casts a long shadow. Arbitrary borders contribute to instability, economic underdevelopment in some areas, political grievances. These are ongoing challenges rooted partly in that history.
And within Muslim societies themselves, what are the big challenges?
They are diverse and context-specific, of course. But common themes include debates around women's rights and roles in society, with a huge range of views among Muslims themselves. Education access and quality can be an issue. Poverty and economic inequality remain significant problems in many places. And of course, the struggle against the stigma and the actual threat of extremism within their own communities.
It is, as you said, a complex tapestry. So for you listening, we really hope this helps you think about how all these threads, history, theology, politics, social issues, weave together to shape the Muslim world today. It's not simple.
It really isn't. And hopefully this deep dive has given you a bit of a shortcut, a framework for understanding that complexity a bit better.
So here's something to maybe chew on, our final thought for you. Given all this diversity we've discussed, the different interpretations, the historical twists and turns, the varied mythos and ethical approaches within Islam, how might understanding these variations offer different ways to tackle some of the big challenges we face today, both within Muslim societies and, globally?
That's a great question. It pushes us beyond monolithic views and asks about the internal resources and possibilities within this incredibly diverse tradition. How can its own history and thought provide pathways forward?
Definitely food for thought.
Okay.
If you found this deep dive valuable, please do us a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people.
It really does.
And we genuinely want to hear your other opinions. What insights did you gain? What did we miss? Let us know in the comments below. Please subscribe to The Other Opinion so you don't miss our future explorations.
And share this with anyone you think would benefit from a more informed perspective. Like, comment, subscribe. Share it all. Helps foster better understanding.
Absolutely. One last quick note. This discussion was generated with some assistance from AI tools to help synthesize the source material. We strive for accuracy, but always encourage you to think critically and do your own further reading.